This is That Twin Mama podcast. But hey, you don't have to be a twin mom to be here. I'm not like a regular mom. I'm a cool mom. So whether you are new, soon to be, or seasoned parent, or maybe you just hope to have kids someday, I promise you'll find something to love, learn from, or laugh at in each episode. I'm your host, Lauren Birdie. Let's do it. Welcome, y'all. Lauren here, back with another great episode. This one's very special to me. I think in doing this podcast, I didn't realize how impacted I would be by meeting so many inspiring women in this industry of just advocating and supporting other women in motherhood or parenting in motherhood, or just experts in fields that just is truly remarkable, the work that they do. And this guest today, it does just that, y'all. Her name is Latham Thomas. She is a superstar doula and founder of Mama Glow, a global maternal health and education platform serving birthing people across the childbearing continuum. Inspired by her transcendent birth of her son 21 years ago, Latham went on to become a doula herself, including to stars like Alicia Keys, Anne Hathaway, and fellow twin mama Ashley Graham. She created this doula program that's educated hundreds of birth workers and touched thousands of lives. She's an author, visiting professor at Brown, and the co-founder of Mama Glow Foundation, a nonprofit committed to advancing reproductive justice and birth equity through education, advocacy, and the arts. And as some of you all may know, the United States currently has one of the highest maternal mortality rates in the of wealthy countries in the world. And the statistics are especially devastating for Black and brown women, who are nearly 3 times likely to die during pregnancy than white women. In other words, y'all, like the work that Latham is doing, she's centered it around Black women. And it's so important, especially in this climate today. At the time of this recording, when it comes out as well, it's just living in the United States. We have an election coming up. There is so much on the line that this work has been never more important in our entire lifetimes. So in today's conversation, Latham talks a lot about the unacceptable statistics and the various ways she's attacking these problems. She also discusses her upbringing. She shares her powerful, transcendent birth story. When I tell y'all, I knew her birth story was powerful, but I hadn't heard her tell it. And it gave me such an emotional reaction and healed something inside me. So I hope I'm excited to share that with you all as well. And she also talks about the similarities in raising these teens, y'all, these teens. I will beat a dead horse with this, tweens and toddlers. I'm, as you know, in the teen and toddler stage. And she broke it down in a way where I get it now. Like she dropped so many gems based on her experience with her son, who is now 21. She's been there, done that. And she just dropped so many gems of what to do with teenage years and how similar they are to the toddler years in such a profound and helpful way. Y'all, there's just so many gems in this episode. So I really and truly hope you enjoy it just as much as I did. Let's do it. Welcome, sis. Latham Thomas is in the building, y'all. I feel like I need a new word other than excited, because I say I'm excited for a lot of guests, but when I say I'm truly grateful, inspired to have you share this space with me, sis. Thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me. What a pleasure and honor.
Oh my gosh, very excited. So I like my guests to introduce themselves in a variety of ways, but for you, I'm wondering, can you give me 3 words that you would use to describe yourself as a mother?
Ooh, 3 words that I would use to describe myself as a mother. I think attentive, nurturing, and what would be another word that I would use to describe myself? I just think
what were your
doting. I think fun. I'm fun. I'm a fun mom.
There you go.
I think my son would say that I'm fun now, but like maybe a couple years ago he'd be like, "You're not cool," but now I'm considered cool. Yeah,
isn't that interesting? Because I feel like I'm a cool mom, or fun mom, but I know he doesn't think that. But I'm like, I'm cooler than others, don't you think? And he's like, "No, you're." Absolutely not. And
this is the age. Like the teen years, you're not cool. But then once they get to college, I think you're cool again.
Okay.
Yeah, like I'm like officially cool. Like
okay.
He like brings me into places with him. His friends know, like I know all his friends. Like if ever I'm on the phone with my son and he's with his friends, he's like, "Here, say hi to my mom." I'm very much included.
Okay.
Yeah.
So let's just get into that now, because I had so many questions around the relationship that you have with your son. It appears to be just so beautiful, close, trusting. And like, that's our goal in life, to raise like these humans that will be able to function fabulously in the world
Yes.
that they are supposed to be, but also cultivate a strong relationship with you and keep that.
Yeah.
Girl, when I tell you, so I have toddlers and I
Yeah.
have a teen.
Yep. God bless.
It's a lot,
It
but
is.
the emotional toll, like the emotional exhaustion between the two of them is almost very similar, like the temperament.
Mm-hmm.
With like little things seem like a really big deal. With like a toddler, you give them a green cup instead of a blue. That can be
It's
a
in
full
the meltdown. Yeah.
With a teen, you can maybe ask them something in a like how they're doing or a question to clean, and it can be a full-blown argument or combative mode. So
Yeah.
I'm in this with them, and I'm wondering, like, how did you have an aha moment, a mantra? What did you do during those teen years to get to the point of where you are now, where your son thinks you're cool and you're close and he's amazing?
Well, the only way out is to go in.
Yeah.
You just have to get through. But what I will say is teens and toddlers are the same. So what people don't realize is you have these little people who have a little bit of freedom when they're toddling around, right? They look back to you to make sure you're still there. They still need that tether as they start to explore the world. Yeah. They also are learning how to socialize in the world that's around them and their place inside that world, their place inside the family unit and expanding outside of that. And so, but also they are handling the hard truths around what it means to be socialized, right? To share, to, the word no, why they can't have something, right? So all these things, like with their development, makes it challenging at times to explain to them beyond their capacity. However, the patience is really important because they're children and they have emotional expression that is sometimes really outsized for what we might see the circumstances to be like. Yeah, I gave you a blue crayon versus a red, right? But at the same time, those emotions and the expression is an opportunity for us to also help them learn emotional regulation.
Yes.
And also how to manage disappointment and challenge and things like that. Teens, right? And the life stage also is moving from baby to a person that has a little bit of agency, right? A little bit more independence, right? They can walk. They don't need you to carry them anymore, right? So that's the stage you're in. Teens are moving out of childhood and on the precipice of adulthood. Yeah. And so they're in a similar transition point. And so both are transition periods, right? Toddlerhood's a transition period, and so is the adolescence period, right? Those are two transitions that are challenging for children because they're pushing up against a boundary. They're trying to figure out how to assert themselves in space. They're trying to figure out how to assert their potency, their strength, their agency, and who they are as humans. And also they need boundaries. They really need something to push up against to understand where they fit in space. And so that's why they challenge you, but they do need you to come back with structure, right? And also they need you to come back with holding them. So even though a teen might say, I don't want anyone around me, it's like the best thing that you can do is be right there, right? Teens, like people think a lot like, okay, when they get independent, I can actually step away. It's actually a time that you need to step in. And so when they move into the teen years is when you really need to be more mindful, watching over them in ways that we thought would be a thing of the past, right? You think like, oh, they're by themselves now. They can go to school. They can take the bus. They can take the train. Like they're moving with their friend groups. They're good. I can kind of turn away a little bit. But it's actually like you would as a toddler. You'd be like, oh, it's too quiet. What they doing, right? So you're turning around to look again, just like a toddler's turning around to look to see if you're still there. The teen is also turning around to look if you're there. And they're looking for a couple of things. They're looking for where are the boundaries? Am I able to move freely? Are my parents going to give me agency? Are they going to push back against like how I'm showing up in this relationship with them? Are they going to let me talk to them this way or let me do this thing that I want to do? Am I going to defy or lie or hide or find ways to push up against them to express myself? And so they do that and they learn from our responses. They learn from how we interact with other children in the home, other people around us. And they learn by pushing against, right? They learn by pushing against the current, pushing against like the rules and the structure that exists to see if they can model something new that works for them. And so sometimes, and we do this for our children all the time, right? oh, I'm noticing that they're not liking this particular thing as a toddler. I'm going to feed them this, or I'm going to try something new. So similarly, we think we know them. When they begin to be adolescents, moving into early adulthood, they're new people.
Yeah.
Right? Just like the baby in toddlerhood, it's a new person.
Yes.
Right? Even their face looks different, right? Everything looks different. Teens too, like their face starts to change. They start to look different. They become different people. And so they have different needs.
Right.
And so what they're asking for in many cases is like, I need you to parent me differently. And so the opportunity we have and the invitation we have as parents is to show up fully, to watch, to observe, to listen fully, to be present. And so whereas it seems like, okay, I got them across the finish line, like they're good. I see it as a really powerful time to step back in, be really more hands-on, like we were when they were little and they needed us to hold their hands so they didn't fall when they were walking, right? They need us again in that same way, hovering, not in a way that's invasive, but being there so that when they look up, they know we're there.
Yeah.
Like, Mom, I'm trying to get through this thing, that they can self-express, they can cry, they can use their emotional range to like develop the tools that they need to get into adulthood.
Yes.
And we provide a safety net for that and also a space for reflection. And so to me, those periods are similar.
Yeah.
And how I got through was exactly how I'm explaining, right? Is really like the listening, talking, the new parenting that I think is so beautiful that I see on social media now, where people are showing how they are moving through difficult and challenging moments with their children by using their voices and using language and being calm, not raising their voice, and being a safe space for their children. That is so important because I didn't grow up with that. And so I feel like the gift that we can give that allows us to change the legacy as parents is to bring the gentle parenting to our children who have to face a world that's also very challenging and harsh on them. That when they're home, they should feel safety. They should feel that, this thing that I have to tell my mom that's difficult, or this challenging thing that happened, or I did something that was disappointing, that it's not the end of the world, or doesn't mean that I'm going to withhold love, but we're going to get through it together.
Yes. I love all that you're naming, and it really makes me think about how there are so many models, like you said, on social media and resources around like gentle parenting or conscious parenting for little kids, like toddlers. Like I was raised with the belt, time out, all these things. So I look to those models.
My
where
mom didn't know no time out. Right? Time to go grab the belt. It was time to go grab the belt.
Time to whoop your butt. But I think about how I'm reparenting myself in those moments where my toddler, where if they are having a meltdown, I'm always there. I'm near, even though they're saying like, I don't want to be around you. I'm like, I know they don't really mean that. Now, to your point, if I really think about them being similar, those moments where my son is pushing me away, like, God, like I seem annoying. I want to shut my door. Like in my mind, I'm like, well, he seems so mature, responsible that maybe that's what he means, but maybe it's not. Thank you for that, because there's not those many models for the teenage years. Because I think our generation is predominantly on social media, but some of our kids haven't gotten that age yet where they're sharing. So thank you for that. That feels so powerful. I think one thing that you've spoken about is during your childhood that was very transformative for who you are as a person is how something around when you were 4 years old and how your mother was very transparent. Can we talk a little bit more about that experience and how that shaped with the work you do today?
Definitely. So my mom was like all into body literacy. She was somebody who really was like really into education. I had tons of books. I used to go to this place called Marcus Books, which is actually the oldest Black-owned bookstore in the country. It's like over 60 years old in Oakland, California. It still exists. And she would take me there to get books. And she was really like about, avid reading and learning. And so when she became pregnant with my sister, I was 4. And so we're about 5 years and 10 days apart. So the entire pregnancy, I was also moving through my toddler years, right? And I had a cousin who was slightly older. And so we would play, but we would also watch what was happening around us. And so my mother was pregnant, my aunt and my great aunt all at the same time within a month of each other, March, April, and May. And so I would be at the belly height of everybody. Like I'm walking around, I'm just seeing bellies, which was.
And you remember all this. Yeah.
Oh my God, yes. I just remember the vantage point of like walking in the kitchen and like bumping into somebody and they would turn around, it would be the belly, right?
Sorry.
And it was so much fun like as a child, but to imagine like, oh my God, there's a baby in there, right? And the fascination that I had. And so my mother saw that fascination and was like, yeah, like let me tell her how babies are born. And so that's why I got into natural sciences, because she explained to me how it happens. And she also talked to me about the body parts. And I, at a very early age, was using like Grey's Anatomy coloring books. And I was going to, there was like this show on PBS called My Mom's Having a Baby. So I would watch that. Nice. And I would go to school and I would like, share what I was learning and stuff because I was like a mini professor. Right. But then me and my cousin had Cabbage Patch dolls back in the day, which by the way, y'all, yeah. These are like, y'all don't know about that life. Like the Cabbage Patch dolls were like epic. If you could get one, if you can get a black one, it was like a unicorn. It's like a Pokemon, right?
Right. They were the GOAT, the first.
Right. And so they were amazing. But my mom bought me Cabbage Patch dolls and we would like roll them up into little balls and stuff them under our shirts and pretend to deliver each other's babies.
Wow.
So that's like, right? And so we were like all into that. Our dramatic play really mirrored what we saw in the world. And so even like the anatomy, I learned at an early age. My mother she always tells this story when we're out with people. And she's like, yes, I was in the grocery store and I was 7 months. And, this person came up to me and said, oh, your mother has a baby in her tummy. And my daughter said, no, my mother has a baby in her uterus and it's going to come out of her vagina. And we're like,
you better say the parts, right?
And she was like, this is what happens, right? When you teach a little one. So so that's what I was like bathed in. Like this was like the consciousness. This is what the, orientation was for me.
Yeah.
And so I think that would plant the seeds for what will become the work I would do later in life. But those seeds were planted really early.
Right.
And so I think that my mom did a really great job of like ensuring that we understood also how our parts worked. And as I think about the world we live in today, where the reproductive, our rights as human beings are under attack. And we think about the legislation and the draconian laws that have been put into place to ban abortion and to make it so that the state has, sanction over your body and your relationship to your body and choices that you make. I think that a critical piece to this equation is understanding what parts you're even fighting for.
Right.
And I think that we go into spaces and there are impaneled groups of men who are making decisions about body parts that they don't even have. And we can't even name the parts that we're fighting for.
Wow. How powerful is that? And so true. Like this is such a wild time that I didn't think we'd see again.
Yeah.
Right?
In our lifetime.
And I'm like thinking about this for my girls. Like, how can I make sure they are informed? Like just not age appropriate, right? But being transparent about what your reproductive parts are, understanding what rights you might want with them. And hopefully they aren't taken away from you. I just think about all that when I think about what am I going to try and teach my girls about?
That's right.
The exact same thing. I think a little bit more about what a beautiful way to be introduced into birth, right?
Yeah.
Girl, I thought babies came from the store. I saw Dumbo. Dumbo was like my first
stork, right?
The stork dropping off the babies, right? Like I didn't really know.
Little blankets. And
so what a beautiful way to be introduced to birth. And I'm wondering if that influenced maybe or changed the way that your birth transpired or influenced in any way, mainly because your birth was so transcendent, right?
Yes.
Of who you became. Tell me more about your birth story because it's beautiful.
It was such a great experience, honestly. Like, I think that, so when my sister came home, it was like the stork, right? Because my mom was pregnant and then I didn't get to go to the birth. And my grandmother brought me to see my sister the next day and I was like, that's her? Like, okay.
And I feel like you wanted to go to the birth, though.
I
feel
like
you
probably wanted to
go.
Be in there. I think I was pissed because, like, she was like in the middle of the night. She had to take me to my grandmother's house, and then she went to the hospital, and I was like, okay. And I woke up and I went to school. I was like, I think I have a sister on the way. And then once my grandmother picked me up from school, she brought me and I was like, okay, there's a baby, but what happened in between? And so, I missed that part. I think I definitely probably wanted to be there. Right. My 5-year-old mind was like, Right. So it did feel storkish, based on like my mom's stories. Right. But so I have that experience, right? And then fast forward to my pregnancy, I had a orientation also around natural sciences and life sciences. So I studied like plant systems and botany in college. I went to Columbia University, and in that experience of thinking I was going to be a biologist, honestly, but being like too social for like the labs and stuff like that, I was like, this is probably like something I should minor in. And so, but that experience, I think of like just, my understanding of life sciences and my understanding of the body and human physiology, I think made me more trusting of the body because I just believed in its capacity. Its capacity for birthing, its capacity for functioning. It's like in every second, your body is making like 800 trillion connections, right? Just in every second, right? And some of those are corrections for things to not go wrong. Some of those are just like functional pieces of like just keeping you alive and just maintaining homeostasis, right? So the body is like doing its thing, like with or without our help, right? So I was like, well, why would this be any different, this process, right? Yeah. And so I think I took that kind of heads like frame of mind. Yeah. And then coming into it. And then of course, like, having the pregnancy, I was living in New York City, y'all, 20 years ago. Think about that. Like my son's 21 now. So it's 22 years ago if you think back. Wow. And around this time is when I would have gotten pregnant, around like October-ish, because he was born in July. And
so you were early 20s when you
I was 23.
I was too.
Yeah. So it was a good time. Because my mom was also the same age. She was like 22 when she had us. Yeah. Okay, so I kept it up with it was a good time, because it was like I am grateful that I did it then because I grew up with my son. Yeah. In ways that I feel grateful for. Because I have friends now who are literally having their first ones and we're the same age. And I'm like, ooh, I don't know if I would have the energy to chase behind like a
Energy of the gods when I was 23 with my son.
Me too. I could do anything. Girl, anyway. I could do anything at that age, y'all. So when I think back, I'm like, oh my God. Yeah, the birth, everything was easy. Right.
Maybe that's why it was such that's why I wanted to have more. That's so true.
Yes, because you're like, oh, this is easy. I could do this again. Yeah, exactly. So it was very easy. Yeah. But all that to say, that experience that I had, the pregnancy was really awesome. When I got towards the end, first-time babies typically come late. Just so people know, when they give you a due date, think due range, because babies are going to come on their birthdays. Yes. Okay? Not their due dates, but on their birthdays. Yes, so just be prepared for that, right? So, and I always think of that when I'm talking to people, like as a doula, like, let's just relax. They're going to come. They're not going to stay in there until they're like 13. They're coming. So let's just, right? But I didn't have that energy. When it was time for me, I was like, I'm exhausted and I'm ready for you to come. Like, let's make this happen. Yeah. And so he was like around 41 weeks. I remember they were saying like, if you don't have him within the next week, we'll have you transferred to the hospital. I was like, oh. And I was delivering in the birth center. Yeah. And so they would let you go until 42 weeks and then you would have to transfer. Now now it's like 41 and sometimes even less than that. Wow. Yeah. So we go to, so we decide the day that I'm like actually going to labor. We walk the whole city because the walking actually helps to move the baby down into the bow of the pelvis, and that movement of shifting back and forth and side to side with your hips also helps the baby's head to press against your cervix, which can help ripen your cervix. So I was doing that. And I walked miles and miles and miles. I remember I had flip-flops on and a denim skirt and like a little tank top. And it was hot. It was July, y'all. So it was hot. And so I remember walking. Then I finally came home, showered, and I was like in bed, just like lotioning and oiling my belly. And I was like, Lord, just give me a sign because I'm exhausted. What's happening? Like, what are we doing? Yeah. And I remember doing that. And I remember sitting in the bed and just like praying because I said, I don't feel like I have a sign of what's happening. Like, I don't know is it imminent or not. And I was like, I just need a sign, Lord. And I was listening to Mahalia Jackson. And about 20 minutes after I said, I want a sign, I felt this pop. It was like, the sound was like a pop. And then I felt this amazing sensation of warm fluid leaving my body. And it felt so good that I realized I was sitting in sheets. And I was like, oh, I have to get up. And so I stood up, and then it was like a gush all over the floor, like Sex and the City, if you've ever seen Miranda. Yes. Right? That Sex and the City episode was literally how my water broke onto the floor. And my son's father was like, "You're peeing." I was like, "It's not urine, I promise." And so then I was like looking for the mucus plug. It was like a whole thing. And then that ensued, the labor ensued after. And what was amazing was that it was like 12:30 at night. Okay. I was so excited. I didn't go to sleep. I watched jazz documentaries till like 4 a.m.
Love it. Yes.
And VHS, by the way.
There we go. There we go.
VHS. And so, which is a relic. And so I'm watching jazz documentaries 4 a.m. Then finally I go to sleep around like 6. Which was a mistake because midwife was like, "Take your ass to sleep." And I was like, "Girl, I'm not going to bed." And I needed that sleep.
Yeah.
Because they don't call it labor for nothing. Yeah. I need that sleep.
Yeah.
So I wake up around 7, 8, and I was like, "Oof, I'm feeling stuff." I take a shower. And then around like 9, I was like, yeah, I couldn't speak anymore. And one of the things that happens in labor when you move into active labor, for purposes of actually being able to move through the process, you lose some of your capacity for speech. So your neocortex shuts off. And what comes up is like the primal template surfaces, which is the part of you that is in autopilot to birth your baby. And so your limbic system, which is your emotional motor system, kicks in. And like what takes over is the process of your body, your baby, your brain working together in unison to allow process to unfold. And it's like being in a trance. And so it's not possible if you feel threatened, if you feel afraid, if you feel unsafe in any way, if you're experiencing an indignity, so if you're upset, all of these things are the antagonists to the birth process. So you're meant to feel safe. Yeah. You're meant to feel dignity, belonging. You're meant to feel secure and empowered and held, like swaddled. You're meant to feel all those things to birth. So the right environment for that will set up a space whereby you can ascend into this trance that's awaiting you, that's awaiting all of us.
Wow.
And so I was able to move through that like by myself, birthing, and then I didn't have language anymore. I just had sounding. And so people could say words, but I couldn't really speak back. And also because it's just taking over, right? So you're overwhelmed by what's happening. We get in a taxi, we go down to the birth center. We get there, and the midwife just observed me, right? My son's grandfather was like, "Get her in her room. She's having a baby. Hurry up." Like, and they were like,
"Sir, sit down." They
just observed, right? Then they took me into the room, and I was in this beautiful room with a skylight. And it had a little bed and a bathtub. Girl, the jets were on. I put on the jets. I was like on my belly and on my back. I like positioned my body so I could get like the full girl.
Everything.
It was everything. And so I was just there and I was like, I was like leaning against the edge and just making the sounds. And it just felt so amazing how it was just happening through me. And also I was falling asleep in between contractions because I had not slept the night before. Right. I had not slept the night before. So I paid for it
later
by being exhausted.
Yes.
So I had full REM sleep.
What?
And I was having full lit dreams in between contractions. And I would wake up and it felt like I was asleep for like 3 hours and it would have been like 45 seconds.
Wow.
Girl. And that was happening. And so then when it was time to push, I felt it, and it was amazing because the midwives, they just like leave you and they come in and check every now and again. And they're like, "How do you feel?" I was like, "I feel like it's time to push." They're like, "Okay, we'll check you." And it was time to push the baby. I was in the tub, so I was intending to deliver him there. And the cord was like wrapped around his shoulder like a backpack strap. And so as he was descending, his heart rate was decelerating, which meant that his heart rate was going down, which is like not a good sign. It's a sign the baby's like not happy.
Yeah.
So they said, "Let's get into the bed." They didn't say anything.
Right.
Calm.
Right.
Right? No distress. My son's father peeped because he saw some eyes moving back and forth, but calm.
Right.
So they said, "Let's get into the bed." I said, "Okay." So we get into the bed and they're like, "Okay, let's have your baby now." Calm. Calm. Not distress, right? Calm.
Getting chills, girl. Wow.
So then I get in the bed and my son's father is on one side and he's on this side, and then my dear friend, Sion, Dr. Katema, who's actually a doctor, OBGYN in DC now.
Oh,
she's on this side, and this is her first birth she attended. She's on this side of me. And then she's on this side, and then we are positioned to have the baby. Now, the position I'm in is like a squat, right? and they're holding me so that I can have the strength. And so as the baby's coming down, I feel this heat. And I was like, what is that? And it was like around me, like all sides of me. And it was like coming like from inside. It was like this internal summer. But then also externally, I felt heat around me, like just hot.
Yeah.
And it felt like it was coming from above. And so I look up and I also felt like a presence.
Okay.
So I look up and I see what everybody else sees as a ceiling. I see in the shape of a U, like a horseshoe, because it was like open in the front. I see this shoulder to shoulder, like ancestors above me, and they're cloaked. And they're cloaked in like almost like a deep burgundy.
Yeah.
And it was like robes. And then their feet were not showing at the end, but the robes were just hanging. And then you could see them, and I could see like bone structure. I could see facial expression. I couldn't recognize anybody by face, but it was like a soul recognition that I knew that those were my people,
Yes.
and that they were here for me and to witness. And so I said, I want to go there. And then everybody looks at the ceiling and they don't see anything, but I see what I'm looking at.
Right.
And I feel myself peel from my body and go up, like when people describe like moments of death or near death where they feel themselves come off their body. It was like this astral projection off of my physical self to like my astral self goes into this, the sky, but like right here over my head. And I watched my son be born with them.
Wow.
And so the vantage point, and it feels like a dream, but everybody recalls the same thing. They recall everything I was saying in the moment. It's like everybody who was there was like, no, you said this. And we looked, and like everybody saw what I saw, but they didn't see physically what I saw, but they experienced. And so what was happening was I was describing everything. Oh my God, look at all the hair he has. Like, look at him come out. I was watching him come out from the vantage point of being above, and seeing a different picture that I couldn't see physically. And so when I talk about this as a rite of passage, when I talk about this experience and what's available to us, like we have to remember that we come from a lineage of people who have an ancestral technology that is not bound to the body. It is not bound to like what we understand through natural sciences, right? It is spiritual. And so this experience is also spiritual for us. It's a point of a rite of passage, is transition, and we can reach back during our birth experiences. We can reach back and grab the medicine we need and grab the lessons we need and take forth with us into the future the gems or the nuggets that we need to carry us forth, right? We can take that with us. We can take that medicine with us. And so for me, it was having them witness me, knowing I wasn't alone, watching my baby come. I felt like so powerful, but I also felt like I wasn't alone.
Right.
It was amazing. It was amazing.
Lath, I haven't heard the story, I guess. I just knew it was that it was powerful, but that's like bringing me a lot of emotion. And I think maybe because I'm realizing now there's so much trauma that can sometimes come with birth.
Yes.
And you describing how you needed to feel, or in the beginning you were saying held, safe, like all these different descriptors we do not get. A lot of mothers, especially our Black and brown mothers, do not feel
we
or
don't
get.
Feel it.
Even if your birth seemed eventless, right? Maybe you might not even know the trauma you felt. You might have felt pressure to do something.
Yep.
I personally, I had my baby in COVID. I'll be brief, but I had twins.
Yeah.
It was a breech birth. The second one was breached. And so they were all saying I had to have a C-section until one doctor finally listened to me. I switched my doctor last month. She was an Australian lady. And she's like, we can at least push vaginally. You're going to need to get an epidural. But she listened. I was, thank God. Still, I was in a room. There was 20 people in there because they wanted to witness the birth. I had a mask on when I pushed. All to say, I feel like it's been normalized to have a trauma birth, right?
Yeah.
And when you ask, you're like, oh, what happened to you? What happened to you? Oh, this happened. And so to hear this story and you have the language, like I'm getting chills and I have an emotional reaction. That was absolutely beautiful. And I wish that could be normalized, especially for our community.
It's supposed to be.
Supposed to be.
And this is why in the work that I do in teaching, that started obviously as doula work, and now it's more me teaching doulas.
Yeah.
Is reclaiming this
Yes.
as the entry point,
Yeah.
not as like the pinnacle,
Right.
as the entry point. We are not meant to survive childbirth. We are meant to have transcendent birth, like you said. Transcendent birth. It's meant to be transcendent. It's meant to be a rite of passage, a spiritual experience. It's meant to be a moment that you emerge from and feel more powerful and witnessed in that power, right? And so how you birth also really connects to like how you experience other things in life, where if I don't feel confident when I come out of birth, it's hard for me to ask for a raise. It's hard for me to ask for things I want in the bedroom. It's hard for me to advocate for myself in other ways if I come out of that experience feeling not unheard, unseen, gaslighted, harmed, abused in some cases for people. And so it's so critically important for us to name the harms and name the ways in which we experienced disappointment, to mourn the birth that we thought we would have, and also to like lift up the stories that center experiences that are possible, because we should know what's possible. We need to have a map for what's possible. And so, and I think that, and I've attended amazing births in hospitals. I've attended amazing births at home and in birth centers. I think it's not always the place. It is sometimes the place, but it's certainly the people. It is who is around you, who is the birth village that is receiving you and helping you to move through those points of transition. That is critically important. And we need to invest in that like we invest in like the best hair salon or the best car or whatever it is. We need to make sure that that team is solid and people that we trust. And if we feel in any way, shape, or form, through intuition, by the way, it will tell you. Like your body will say, no, something is wrong. And you don't have to now try to be Columbo and figure out why. The answer is no. Right. If you don't like them for whatever reason, you're not feeling right, change providers, ask questions, get second opinions. I love that there's like some really great companies out there that help us with this. There's a really cool company called Culture Care that does second opinions. It's a doctor's, and so they will talk for Black women. So this kind of thing where you can talk to people who will give you another vantage point. There's apps like Earth that, you can go to and put in your experiences and talk about like, what has happened to you so that other people who have similar experiences can look and see what those providers are doing. And it's an accountability pathway for us to get better care. But I also think investing in, the type of care that we want, right? Like investing in out-of-hospital birth, investing in midwifery, because that's really like, if we think about the birth of this nation, it was Black and Indigenous midwives who delivered everybody. And now we have less of them. We have like 14,000 midwives compared to like maybe 37,000 OBGYNs. Huge difference, right? And then of those OBGYNs, less than 2% are African American, right? And then the same thing for midwives, less than 2% are Black. Like how is that possible? Because it was by design. And so we're in a position, and I don't know if you saw that recent research that came out talking about how studies have shown that Black women get unnecessarians, we call them, or unnecessary C-sections at higher rates, right, than their white counterparts. And we know this is for convenience. We know this is for control. We know there's so many reasons for why, but we are not seen in our humanity and our dignity. And our bodies have been, since the beginning of time, right? Our bodies have been commodified. Our bodies have been seen as sites of labor and also sites of experimentation. And so the medical system was actually built upon and codified upon our bodies being utilized for medical advancement. And so of course, that makes sense that we would see that. But having research to back it up allows us to continue to say, we have been telling you this all along. Now here's research-backed data to tell you what we've been saying all along, to show to you, right? Please listen to us. And so we have to, though, invest in the change as well. Like we have to say, okay, where are the people that are providing the type of care that I desire? I'm going to do the research, right? So that's another piece too. But I also want people who are listening, and as we think about like our own birth stories, to make peace, right, with the stories that we have, and seek safe spaces to tell your story, because that story lives inside of you and it lives in your tissues. And if we don't unearth those stories, there's moments where we need to tell our story, right? And there's times where we don't feel safe to do so. I think it's important to enter into spaces where you can process. And I have so many people, thousands of women. We have trained 3,000 doulas globally.
Yes.
Thousands of people who come because of their birth story.
Right.
And they're like, I wasn't seen in my humanity and my dignity, or I had a traumatic experience. I'm coming here to reclaim the process, but also to heal for myself so that I can be a provider. I can provide doula support, but also so that I can heal my own wounds, right? And so Mama Glow is that space, right, where we help people to process in that way and become really great doula providers, but also a space where we are helping people match with families so that they can provide excellent service to people who are in this pathway, so that you have the hand-holding you need regardless of what exactly happens in your birth. Nobody can control that. That's like up to God. But what we can control is how we deploy support, how we make people feel, what the experience is like for them, right? Yes. We can, and as I always think about it, is our job is to protect your memory of the experience. Yeah. That is like what I'm concerned with. Like how you recall your birth, that's my job.
Right. Don't be gaslit, because we get let all the time.
All the time.
That's why Mama Glow is just, the work you're doing is so important. Like and even just speaking with you now, you healed something in me. Literally, I'm not kidding. I didn't expect to have this emotional reaction, but like just the presence of you, right? Being a brown woman that went through that. Because I feel like in our generation today, the experience that you had in home birth, midwifery, you think of privilege and whiteness with that. Yep. So to see someone that looks like you, to have midwives that are Black and brown, to have doulas that are Black and brown, that is just that representation matters. Yeah. Your story matters. But then also the connection with other people, as you say, that maybe had a trauma birth. That healing is just, I don't know, I just did not expect that reaction. So the fact that you're bringing all these women together and all these different people from all walks of life to educate, to advocate.
Yes.
It's just so powerful. I can't even quantify.
Thank you.
I'm wondering
much.
Now, I've been watching Mama Glow and watching your journey for a bit of time now, and it seems like it is just kind of taken off a little bit more in the past few years. And I know you've coined a term. I don't know if you coined it, but you refer to your open nest stage versus empty nest. As we spoke about, your son is now senior in college and going off. So maybe that has allowed you more space to really blossom your other baby.
That's right.
However, what does it feel like now that you're in this stage of life of open nesting? And tell me more about that.
Yeah, the open nesting. I did coin that. Thank you.
You did? Yeah, I love it.
I found that dropping my son off to college as a freshman, that there was a lot of camaraderie amongst folks that I was speaking with on Instagram. I was like, how are you feeling? I was leading up to the moment. I was talking about it for months because it was imminent and I was not sure how I would handle. And I did a lot of prayer and a lot of journaling and reflecting and just talking with my son and really kind of also negotiating how we would navigate the time. Like he knows that I'm the type of person that if I call and you don't pick up,
it's over.
Yeah, if it's like maybe 2 minutes, but then after that, I'm ready to call somebody, right? And I'm about to go into, I'm doing the search and, So he has learned that like, it's not his responsibility to manage my anxiety as a parent. However, there are things that he can do that that don't cost anything. They don't cost him his dignity to help maintain the relationship and also help to keep me in a space of calm and down regulation, right? And so what that looks like is answering the phone and being like, hey, I'm on my way to this place and I'm walking with a friend. Can I call you back? That's all I need to know, right? Like if you answer, I'm calm. Oh, I know where he's at. Or if he's in class, he'll text, I'm in class, or whatever it'll be, but he'll always reach out. He will immediately respond and let me know that he's safe. And so I really appreciate that. And so we developed that early. So I've never had an issue with him when he got to school where I was like, where are you? And then we slowly started to figure out our cadence in speaking. I just call whenever now. I don't say like, oh, let's talk on this day. But before I was like, I'm trying to give him some space and whatever. But I had to talk to him every day because in the beginning I just needed that. And then it started to push. And he really got me ready. Also, when he went to study abroad, he like prepared me for like a year for that because I was not ready to let him go. And he went to Spain for a semester. Took a lot of energy and a lot of prep and a lot of walking me through and working it. And he just knew how to he just knew how to do it. And it worked out really great. And I went with him to get him settled and I picked him up from there when he went. And it was a really great experience where he grew a lot. And so all that stuff was happening for him in his life. And I think I was growing parallel in my own ways where when you don't have people in the house to fuss over, you're not making food, or you're not solving a problem, you're not doing homework, you're not like washing their clothes and like looking after them in the ways that you typically are on a daily, you don't realize how much mental and emotional exertion goes into the care. And so even if they're not, it's like when you have a house guest, for instance, right? Like even if they're like a church mouse, there's a lot of mental and emotional energy that goes into planning for them and then hosting them, even though they're doing their own thing, you still can't focus on your life because there's people there. And so you feel out of routine, right? So it's similar in that the type of energy that's spent on them doesn't get poured into other things because you're so busy, right? Focusing on them. And so what I noticed was it wasn't like there was a lot of time and energy that felt like it surfaced. It was more just like I was able to divert it. And so what I found was like, I was able to get creative things off the ground that I was talking about for years and things that I wanted like showed up. And also the people that were needed to actually facilitate showed up. So I had the right team now, right? Which took time to get into place. And so we have amazing staffers who help me to get things done and who move at a pace even though like I have like a ridiculous pace in my mind, who keep up to my pace and who are also ahead of me. So I'll find like that I need a certain type of care and a certain type of just thoughtfulness,
right?
That people are like, oh, and I went ahead and did this. I'm like, okay, great, thanks.
When
like knowing,
yes,
right, that Latham's gonna try to be a perfectionist about this, so I'm just gonna go ahead and take it off her plate,
right?
Because it won't get done. And like noticing those things and then just going ahead. And then I'm like, and I can't do nothing because it's done already.
Right.
So it's like that, right?
Yeah.
Like those types of like anticipating my needs. And that's really the core of doula work, is anticipating the needs of others, right? And so I have people who I've trained, you know, through our methodology, but also who work on our team. Like everybody that works with us is a doula, and everybody who works with us got trained through Mama Glow. And so, which is amazing. Yeah. So I'm just grateful to be around people who have this philosophy and who have a shared vision, but also who are servant leaders, who like really take pride in the work that they do. So, but that was only possible because my son had, you know, gone into school where I could actually receive the support and also pour in the ways that I needed to as a leader, but then also receive in the ways that I needed as someone who needed to move away from the granular pieces and move into a larger vision role. And so that's been really great. So I feel like the open nest is about like making space for new things to give rise to in your life, and really thinking about like, you know, not losing something, but like, you know, making space for something else. And also like a reorganization, right? Like I feel like when your children move out the home, you reorganize your life. Right. And so it's an invitation to like assess and change and grow, and also challenge yourself in ways. Like maybe it's like you're going to go out with friends more because you haven't really done that. Or maybe you're going to take some time for yourself and do some vacations, or what does it look like for you? I feel like that's the opening, right? It's an invitation to like, you know, do something new or plant a seed for something else to grow. And so, yes, I think you're right that for us, it catapulted the work. Like we launched like 5 programs this year.
Y'all are doing it. You're doing
it was
it big.
So many things.
All the things. I love it. And as we like come to the end and close out, there's just been a theme, I think, throughout our conversation where about around community.
Yes.
You know, you talked about, I'm gonna keep on crying when I talk about your daggone birth.
Yeah.
But like the community that was around you when you gave birth, the community that you're building through Mama Glow and the foundation, the community that you're now receiving now that you are open nesting.
Yes.
For all our listeners, we know motherhood can be very isolating or lonely.
So isolating.
Right?
Yes.
So for the moms that are listening that haven't found their community, what do you say to them? What advice would you give someone that is trying to curate that community for them?
Whew, that's a good question. First, I will say this, is that I'm still also learning. Like I'm still on a learning journey of finding and refining that group. And what I will say is much like the beginning where when you have that baby and you look to your left and your right and the people that you thought would be there are not there.
Yeah, girl, bye.
Right?
Yeah.
Those people are not there. And you kind of harbor this resentment around them being able to show up. I want you to hold that. That's a valid feeling and you deserve to hold that, especially because, like you said, motherhood is extremely isolating. And I also want you to hold, on the other hand, that we have built systems against caregiving in this country and people do not know how to show up. Yeah. Find out what happens if you lose somebody very close to you, how people can show up. They cannot. Yeah. Find out if somebody gets really sick and you have to reorient your life around caretaking. People cannot. So you will find that people just don't know how to do it. Right. And so you take it as they don't want to spend time with you. They don't know how. And so what we have to do is beforehand, we have to come together as community and say, okay, let's sit down, map out what your pod looks like, right? And pod mapping is a really cool process that comes out of the disability justice movement. And it's a really great way for us to think about how to design the visual of what it looks like to have support. So you have all these little circles and you're in the center and around you are different circles of different sizes. And these are the people who live inside of those pods and inside of those circles who you're going to call on. So who's in the closest to you as you go further out, those are other names, but the closest, and you can find this online, just say pod mapping and you'll find like the map, and it's a really great exercise to do. And we do it in like a lot of our training programs too, to help people design for themselves what that model looks like of care. Yeah. And so I wish that I had done this prior. I had not. Yeah. And so when my friends didn't show up, I didn't know how to take that. And I internalized it as something being wrong with me. I internalized it as not being loved. And that made it feel actually worse, right? So if you can hold that, people love you, but do not know how to show up. People do not understand that your life has changed, that you have gone through literal transformation. If we think about a caterpillar to a butterfly, that's you. Like literally you. Even though you look physically the same for the most part, internally, everything has changed and reorganized. Your cells are different. Your brain is different. You have different grooves in your brain. Everything's different, right? Your body's not even the same ever again, right? Everything has changed. So they don't know how to show up. So let's hold that, right? So we have to teach them, but we also have to prepare them. Right. And so we do this in the prenatal period. We start to enlist people who will be part of our community. You're about to have twins. I'm about to have a cohort of people who have twins that are my elders that can walk me through this process. So what does that look like, right? So mapping out that community, finding people, going into places where you can meet friends and stuff like that too. Have folks connect you with folks too. Go to as many support type of circles, classes, events, and things like that as well. Outside of that, I would say the other piece then is, also understanding that there's also seasons. And so sometimes there's people in your life, and what I found in my adulthood and in this open nesting period is that it's also been a gateway to like ebb and flow where I can like receive and release much more easily. So something comes into my life and I'm like, great, that's awesome. And it leaves, I'm like, oh, okay, awesome. Right. And so being able to be more easeful, like, to have the capacity to receive, I think is really important for us as women to expand that. And we're so good at giving. And so when it comes to a time where we need to pour in, we don't know how to receive. And then when we hold our hands out, everything slips through. Right. And so if we can learn how to expand our capacity to receive, that starts with early motherhood, right?
Yes.
I need you to tie my shoes for me, right? While I'm pregnant, I can't see my feet, right? I need you to rub my feet. I need you to go get the groceries. I need you, like whatever that is, start being able to ask and not feel like, oh, it's a sign of weakness, right? It's actually a sign of vulnerability and maturity to be able to ask for what you need, right? So that we got to learn, and we got to relearn that because we've learned so many ways to like put ourselves last, right? So that's another one.
Yeah.
But the other piece I would say is that as we think about community, become that person that you want to be friends with, right? So for many of us, it'll be like I see this all the time, like on Instagram and social, people be talking about, they'll see something online and they'll show like pettiness and unforgivingness and all these things. And it's a lot of it's jokes, but some of it is really how we are. And I would ask ourselves to think about like, you know, the harms that we've experienced that have made us think the way we do about discarding people. Right? Like that somebody does one thing and they're discarded, right? And I want us to like interrogate what that really means to do, and where do we need to like cut people off? Or is it that we learn about what people are? Like I learned that you're the good friend for partying. You're the friend that I can ask for, you know, to come rub my feet, make me laugh. You're the friend that I can depend on if it is going down and somebody needs to pull up, right? You're the person who like, and knowing people's limitations, right? Knowing that I can't tell you nothing because you're a sieve. It's going to be, I need a vault, right? I don't need a sieve. I don't need you to tell my business. I need a vault, right? I don't tell you stuff, right? So you just know who people are. And so, but if you accept people, right? If we learn acceptance, then we can say, okay, like this person is good and I can only take this much of them. I love them. They can be in my life, but I get to control the way they're in my life, right? And we create boundaries, right? One of my friends says fences keep good neighbors, right? So design the fencing that you need and then think through what the relationships are going to be in this iteration. So I can change, even though you were my best friend when we were toddlers and through, you know, high school, maybe it's changed. Okay, that's fine. I don't have to, because I grew, I don't have to get rid of you. In some cases, there are you know, sunsets for relationships. And that's okay, right? And we can recognize when those are, but then when we're conflicted and we're like, well, I really love this person, but it's like, you can still love them and just not see them all the time, right? And so, so be gentle with how you think about your relationships and whether or not you're discarding people based on an action or something, and whether or not these are people that you can put into spaces where they can be useful members of your community for particular moments, right? And so think about like your really good friend who's so organized, but like is too intense. Like, help me plan the birthday party. Right?
Yeah, girl, I'm
like,
skills here.
Right?
Exactly.
But I might not be able to talk to you every day because I have to take yoga afterwards, right? So it's like, you know, you just have to think about like being gentle with people because we're all, you know, like navigating, you know, immense challenge. And so being loving and gentle and not discarding, because I don't want to be discarded. But I also want to know like when I need to, you know, be confronted with something about like how I behaved in a relationship or how I've been as a friend, like make space to have those conversations. It's like, this is how I need you to show up as a friend, right? And, or this is what I need right now. And so I might take a step back from our friendship or whatever it looks like. But I want people to think about like, does it mean, okay, I'm growing into a new version of myself, I'm cutting everybody off. Like, you don't have to do this. I just want to just say that, right? Like we don't have to like get rid of people. And there are some that we know like aren't healthy. So of course there's those exceptions. But generally speaking, we just have to reevaluate and really do like a taking of stock of the relationships we have and how we want to move through them and how we want them to grow with us. And so I invite you to do that work and also to be in spaces with people doing things that you want to be doing. So if you're not there yet, right? And not in this sort of like capitalist, like, you know, got to get there striving way, but more in a, I want to be a more patient person. That person's like, how is that person so zen? Or I want to be more organized. Like, you know, I really want to be in social settings, but I'm really shy. I'm going to push myself and go out with this really cool extrovert. Like find ways also to push yourself in ways that you want to grow so that you can enter into settings and meet the people who are supposed to be your crew. Because that also happens when you push yourself a little bit outside of your comfort zone. You enter into spaces and you meet the people you're supposed to connect with. And it always feels so it always feels like so serendipitous when it
Yes.
happens, right?
Yes.
And also on time.
Right.
And so I really feel like if we make those little tiny efforts, that God sends us little earth angels who show up at the right time. And those will be people that we kind of navigate, our life on this earth with. And sometimes they stay for a lifetime, and sometimes they're people we know for a season. But either way, you're deserving of love and friendship. And so while, you're in the house, like right after having a baby, it is challenging and it feels like you could feel all alone because like nobody's showing up. But if we can plan for that, if we can plan in advance, those people will be there. And hopefully those will be your people who, watch you and your baby grow.
Yes. I love that so much. It doesn't have to be so black and white, right? Like you can have people in your life for a season, or you can have people in your life for a reason. Like I have my group of friends that don't have kids. And at first I felt some type of way the way they showed up.
Yeah.
But I realized I don't need them to fill that void.
Right.
I'm going to find me some twin moms over here.
Yes.
And like, just like moving and building your community. And I love this pod work that you were talking about. We're going to link that because I'm going to do that. And I feel like some of these listeners might need to. I know that there were so many gems dropped here. Latham, thank you so much. Where can my listeners find you and follow along, sis?
First of all, thank you too. One of the things I feel like was so beautiful, like when we were at a fashion week, y'all, being mommies, being fly.
Things.
And what I loved was that so many people were like, I'm so moved about how you show up in motherhood authentically, how you give voice to our experiences, how you make it accessible and relatable, but also how you just remind us that like we can be ourselves. We can make mistakes. We can also grow. We can grow and encourage others, on their growth journeys. And so I really applaud you for building not only a platform, but also like a lifestyle around service in this way, and just creating a space for people to also convene, because this is a community, and you never know who's on the other end listening and what they're needing, right? And so you're also giving people medicine, and I appreciate you for that as well. So thank you for the invitation.
Oh my gosh, that coming from you means all the world, all the freaking world. The only thing I regret is that I didn't find you prior to my girls.
We found each other.
We found each other now.
Yeah.
For people who want to continue to find Latham, what's your social media?
Sure.
Mama Glow, tell them all the things.
Of course. So you can find me. I'm Glow Maven on Instagram. It's just GLOWMAVEN.
We'll put it in the notes.
And then we got Mama Glow on Insta and mamaglow.com. If you're interested in finding a doula, we're all over the country. If you want to become a doula, or if you're a nurse and you want to do the training, we teach doulas and nurse care managers at Mama Glow. And if you are somebody who just wants to pour into the work and support and ensure that doulas who may not be able to afford the training get access, the Mama Glow Foundation provides scholarship. And so you can always make a donation through mamaglofoundation.org. We would love that. But if you are here, if it's October, I don't know if this is coming out.
Yeah, I'm about to say, we should probably.
Is it coming out?
We'll make it come out.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
So y'all, October 5th and 6th. October 5th and 6th.
Yup. I'll be there.
Expo!
Doula Expo, y'all.
Come to Doula Expo.
Yes.
We are going to be chilling. It's going to be amazing. It is essentially a festival that's really celebrating the vision and for a future of birth work, for how we should be, what we've been talking about today. It is a space where we're having conversations about maternal health, about reproductive health, about mental health. It's spaces for us to learn about how to take care of ourselves and our bodies. And we have an amazing wellness garden. It's literally the outdoors, indoors, a space where there's going to be for you to relax. Your kids can be there. It is amazing.
I love a good scene.
So please come. But we have lots of giveaways. Amazing brand partners are there. So
the lineup is sick.
The lineup is sickening.
Wild.
So just come and be in community. We'll do some sort of offer for your folks too.
For sure.
Right?
We'll put something in the notes.
But y'all got to come because we want to hug you in person and hear your birth stories, etc.
Well, thank you so much, sis. It was an honor to have you. That has been another episode of That Twin Mama podcast, y'all. Peace. And that is it for today's episode of That Twin Mama podcast. But before we bounce, I'm going to leave y'all with 2 requests. The first is, if you are enjoying this podcast, please follow along and leave us a 5-star review on either Apple Podcasts or Spotify, whichever your preferred platform is. These ratings do a lot for our engagement, but also gives us the inspiration, the push to keep on showing up for you all week after week with some great content that we are sure you're going to enjoy. And secondly, follow us on our socials. You can find me at That Twin Mama Podcast on Instagram and at That Twin Mama on YouTube. On Instagram, you'll see a lot of short form versions of these videos, but a lot of content that relates to the subject matter. week after week that I am sure you're going to love. So until then, again, thank you for showing up. Thank you for all your support. And we look forward to seeing you next time. Peace, y'all.